Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh, and very good morning to all of the audience here. Okay, let us start our talk today with Umul Kitab Surah Al-Fatihah. Al-Fatihah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi. Okay. Alright. Okay. Alright, inshallah today we are going to have a SUKSESS Supervision Skill Advancement series, which will be which the talk will be given by our respected speaker, Professor Dr. Abdul Wahab Abdul Rahman, on the topic Lion Supervision from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. inshallah. This talk has been organized by DDPGR. Thank you, Dr. Murni and team, in collaboration with CPS. Alright, so before we start, I know that you are getting excited to know more about this topic. Okay, so before we start, I would like to introduce a little bit about our speaker. Okay, so our speaker is Professor Dr. Abdul Wahab Abdul Rahman. He is one of the professor in Department of Computer Science, Kuliah of Information and Communication Technology, KICT IIUM. Alright, he graduated from several universities, which start from the Bachelor of Science of Electrical Engineering from Uni of Essex, Master Electronic Engineering, National University of Singapore, PhD in Computer Engineering, Nanyang Technological University, NTU in 2004. Okay, he also have the working experience in Hewlett Packard for almost 11 years, yeah, Prof? I think so. Okay, yeah, from 1979 to 1990, sort of that during that time. Okay, and then he has also almost 20 students supervision. Okay, so 9 PhD students, 6 graduated, 3 ongoing, 2 master student, and PG supervision of 5 students. Okay, so as you can see that he has almost more than 20 almost 20 students, and actually one of the students under his supervision is me myself during the master degree. Okay, so I still remember that during his supervision he is very fatherly but strict but also strict. I still remember one thing when he asked to submit the paper or conference paper. He also always say like this: Zaliza, I want to have your favor. Can you do a favor for me? I want you to submit a paper, journal paper, but the deadline is tomorrow. So I think, Prof, seriously, like tomorrow. Okay, so we are stayed up at the lab, and then we do the paper, and we managed to submit that. Then the output is we managed to submit more than 10 papers during the master degree. So that one is, that's why I really want to hear about the Lion Supervision from Prof Wahab. Okay, so without further ado, I think you are almost excited now to know about the topic. So I would like to invite Professor Dr. Abdul Wahab Abdul Rahman to give a topic, a talk on topic Lion Supervision. Welcome, Prof. Prof, unmute, Prof.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Dr. Nur Zaliza. Okay, let me share my PowerPoint slide so that I can maybe talk better with the PowerPoint slide. Hang on a second. Yeah. Okay, can you see my PowerPoint slide?
Yes, Prof.
Okay, good. Okay, normally I started off with teaching at Nanyang Technological University when I was in the academician, or they call it the Ivory Tower, you know. And what is very important is that we will always remind our student, you know, why is it important to have a Lion supervisor? Because later you see in the story. It's a very short story, and I will give you the story first, and then after that we will discuss about the moral of the story, And I want you to participate by asking lots of questions, because I think this one requires a lot of discussion. So let me just make the story short, and then let me make the whole moral of it, why I think this is important. And let us discuss on how we can practice it, how we can do it right here in IIUM, and how this whole thing can align with the Sejahtera framework. Okay, so I think it is quite important, and it can be very, very tricky. But I want to discuss about it, and I think I want to come to a point where we can come to some kind of a consensus and see what we can do in order to help our PG student, our PhD student especially, not just the master student. Okay, I am very sure some of you, maybe Zaliza or some of my other students, I may have talked to you about the Lion Supervisor, but it's okay. Just listen for another time and enjoy it. And I'm very sure you will enjoy the story again. It started off one day, in the forest itself. It's a sunny day. And you find that this particular rabbit is jumping around full of joy. And then suddenly a fox was hiding behind a tree, saw the rabbits and telling himself, this will be a very good lunch for me. Okay. Now the fox then quickly jumped on to the rabbit and caught him by surprise, holding the rabbits on his hands, making sure that the rabbit is tightly secured, and said, wow, I'm now going to have a very nice rabbit lunch today. Okay, so that was the beginning of the story. Okay, actually what happened, why this rabbit was jumping and so forth, let's take a look at the story further. Then the rabbit replied, wait. Don't eat me first, okay? You should at least wait a few days before you can eat me, because there's a story behind it that I want to tell you. So then the fox says, oh yeah, why should I wait? Lunch is coming, it's already almost 12 o'clock and it's lunchtime. So I'm all set to eat you up. Well, I'm just finishing writing my chapter 1 and chapter 2 of my PhD thesis. As you know, chapter 1 and chapter 2, chapter 1 is the introduction, chapter 2 is the literature review. And both these chapters are very important chapters, especially for chapter 1. If you don't do well in your chapter 1, it means that your PhD thesis is gone. So it's quite interesting, when the fox listened and said that, hey, this rabbit is doing a PhD thesis. Okay, so he wants to know what is the title of the thesis. So, that's a stupid excuse why I should not eat you. What is the title of your thesis anyway? So he's very interested to know, correct? So therefore, then the rabbit says, I am writing my thesis is on the superiority of rabbits over foxes and wolves. Wow, this is something which is against all nature, it cannot be. So the fox says, are you crazy? I should eat you up right now, Everybody knows that the fox will always win over rabbits, because fox are cunning enough. They can just eat the rabbits, and so forth. So the rabbit says, not really. According to my research, so you must believe in research, right? All of you academicians, you're all doing a lot of research. So therefore, we are going to believe in research. Not really. According to my research, it's otherwise. So let's listen to what it has to say. If you like, the rabbit says, you can come to my burrow and read it for yourself. If you're not convinced, fine. Then you can go ahead and have me for lunch. So thinking about that, the fox says, are you really crazy? You must be really crazy and mad, to really say that. Well, anyway, but since the fox was curious, and knowing, he's very curious about it, and had nothing to lose, so it went with the rabbit into its burrow. Anyway, the fox also was thinking that, hey, since I can go into the burrow, maybe I have more than one rabbit. So therefore, he said, okay, fine, I'll follow you. Go into the burrow. and then go and listen to what you have to say about the PhD thesis. So the fox never came back out. Oh, what happened? So the burrow has a big, huge trap, you know. So let's go further, you know. Let's listen. So a few days later, the rabbit was again taking a break from writing the PhD thesis, jumping with joy after finishing chapter 3 and chapter 4. Chapter 3 is your research methodology, and chapter 4 is actually your preliminary work of the PhD thesis. When a wolf came out of the bushes, this time is a wolf, was ready to eat the rabbit. So therefore, in this case here, this time it is a wolf. But our rabbit here has finished chapter 3 and chapter 4 of the PhD thesis. So let's see what happened here. Then the rabbit yelled, wait. Hold on. You cannot eat me right now. Okay. So that's kind of interesting. And why might that be, you fuzzy appetizer? Because I want to just eat you. I can eat you now, the wolf said. You know, because after all, this is lunchtime. I'm hungry. You know, I can just eat you. I'm almost finished, said the rabbit, with writing my PhD thesis, titled "The Superiority of Rabbits over Foxes and Wolves." Of course, as far as the wolf is concerned, the wolf laughed so hard that it almost lost its hold on the rabbit and said, maybe I shouldn't eat you. You are really sick in your head. You might have some kind of a disease, you know, which is contagious. And if I eat you, you know, I will die of that disease. So the wolf opined. Come, in that case, you know, come and read for yourself my thesis. You can eat me after that, you know, if you disagree with my conclusion. Because at that point of time, he has already into the, what do you call it, the chapter 3 and 4, 5 and 6, which is already concluding. Okay, so therefore he says, you know, I'm ready to conclude the PhD thesis. So he said, come to follow me, you know. So let's do that. So the wolf went to the rabbit's burrow and never came out. Wow, what happened? Okay, let's continue the story. So the rabbit finished writing the PhD thesis. Like I mentioned, that guy has got 6 chapters altogether. He finished all the 6 chapters and was out celebrating in the lettuce field. Another rabbit came by and asked, hey, what's up, duck? You seem to be very, very happy. You know, so what's going on? Oh, yes, I have just finished writing up my PhD thesis. I'm so happy. After this, you can call me Dr. Rabbit. You know, so therefore he's so happy. Congratulations. What is the title of your thesis? What is it all about? My title of the PhD thesis, The Superiority of Rabbits over Foxes and Wolves. Wow. So this rabbit also, his friend was kind of interested to know what is that. Are you sure? That doesn't sound right. We always lose out to foxes and wolves. But how come your PhD thesis contradicts whatever nature is talking about? Oh, yes. You should come over and read yourself as far as the thesis is concerned. You know, and you will find that you will believe what I have as far as my PhD thesis. So are we interested to know what happened now? I think most of you knows, you know, what happened here. So they went together to the rabbit's burrow. As they went in, the friend saw a typical graduate student abode, you know, a house, a place to stay for graduate student. And you will see all the messiness, you know, especially after writing one's thesis. Of course, I'm not sure about most of you, but I am sure that is what is going on before you submit your thesis to the CPS or to our PG office. The computer with the controversial thesis was in one corner because, of course, you did the computer. On the right, there is a pile of fox bones. Wow, now you know what is going on. On the left was a pile of the wolf bones. Aha. And in the middle, in the middle is the huge lion. Stays a huge lion is belching and picking his teeth. Just had a good, dinner, or lunch in this particular case. So the moral of the story, it doesn't matter what you choose for your thesis subject. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you use for the data. Okay? What does matter is who you have for a thesis supervisor. I want to discuss at this point of time, from your past experience, having a supervisor or the co-supervisor, I know like Zaliza's situation, your co-supervisor is strong enough to help you out and pull you, out of that mess you are in earlier, right? So therefore, in this case here, don't you agree, that it is important to have that thesis supervisor who is strong? Later, we will discuss what we meant by strong, in this particular case. I'm going to open up for question first before I continue on the next detail. Any other question, any other discussion, any other disagreement with this one here?
Okay. Alright, so I just going to read about the comment from the chat box here. So Dr. Hasina said educated rabbit and fox. And then Dr. Nur Azra said interesting storytelling, a father telling a rabbit and fox story to his children. And Dr. Murin said supervisor may make you or break you. Okay.
Correct. So I think on that note, it is important, that the supervisor plays an important role, in helping you out, especially during your early years, of your PhD work. Is there any other comment? Anybody has any other comment?
Anyone want to comment or want to have question for Prof?
Can we say that the supervisor is using the student?
It's using the student. Yeah. Can we have the supervisor using the student, Prof?
Okay, be careful because when you have that kind of situation, you see what happened is that I know of a few cases where the supervisor do not have the expertise, do not have the knowledge, and he is making use of the student to actually educate him or to teach him in that particular area. And in the end, both the supervisor and the student will lose out. These are the cases where the student will never be able to manage to finish on time. Okay, they extend, and even in the end, in some cases, they cannot finish. And I can guarantee you that because the supervisor themselves do not have the knowledge in that particular field. I'm not talking about the topic, I'm talking about the field. Okay, and because of that, he is making use of the student, to actually teach him or educate him. I give you an example. The most recent technology is on blockchain. If you ask me to do blockchain, I will never be able to do it because I don't have the expertise, and the knowledge on that particular area. So therefore, it's out of the question. But if you force somebody who don't have the knowledge to actually do it, in the end, he may rely on you, the student, to teach him. And in the end, he cannot give a proper guidance, a proper suggestion for you. So therefore, it becomes a big issue and big problem. I've seen this in a lot of other universities. When I was doing the PhD examination, I have seen. And when I ask the student question, about whatever is going on, he or she doesn't know. He just do whatever is the present situation. He cannot, because as a PhD graduate, you must be an expert, in that particular area or project that you are doing. Okay, so therefore, in this case here, you must develop that expertise. So in the end, what the Lion supervisor is supposed to do is to create another Lion PhD. So that that Lion PhD now, okay, when during the Viva, he is the Lion who knows what is going on and the expert in his particular project. And even the examiner dare not question him because he knows the in and out. So that should be the case. Or else I think we have failed to make him a PhD graduate. I think you understand.
Yes, clear, Prof. Is it okay, yeah, Dr. Mazna? I think yes, Prof. You can proceed. Maybe
Any-
yes.
Okay, any others? If not, I will continue.
Prof, one question from Dr. Zainab.
Ah,
How to make sure that the rabbit will not run away from the lion? Yeah, very good question.
okay. I will pursue that further when we talk about the Lion supervisor and what is our role. Okay. Can I hold on to that answer when
Okay,
we
Prof,
discuss
sure.
further? Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Let me just proceed. Let me just proceed. You see, in the Lion supervisor, most important thing about the Lion supervisor I want to repeat is that he or she as a supervisor must be expert in the academic field of the research. Okay, so that means you cannot expect that you know nothing about data analytics, big data and so forth. Suddenly you want to really supervise your student who is doing on big data analytics. No, not fair. Okay, so therefore in this case here, you cannot do something like that. Okay, so I am an AI man. I am a signal processing man. So I am expert in both, So if you ask me to supervise you in that particular area, fine. Okay, but don't ask me to do blockchain. I'm not the blockchain expert. But of course, right now, I am managing a project on blockchain for eScroll. Okay, but managing in that particular context is very different. Okay, but supervising a PhD student is very different. Okay, that one is more on project management. So the skill on project management is something that I have picked up when I was in Hewlett Packard because I was the R&D manager. That is something that I can do very well as a project manager. Okay, but if you ask me to supervise a PhD student to take blockchain, I say no, I can't. Okay, so therefore it is important that the supervisor have the expertise and the skill, in that particular research field that the student is doing. Strong publication record in the field of research. You must have a strong record. You must be able to publish. You cannot make use of your student, making use of your student to publish for you, but you're not the expert. Ini yang jadi apa? Kong kali kong. So you're gonna have a problem. You're gonna have a problem. Because then you just tag along like what Dr. Mazna is saying, you are just making use of your PhD student and you don't have the expert. So therefore, in this case, yeah, very difficult. That is why, it is important that in the Sejahtera framework, it is very important for us, in this case here, to make sure that we are the expert in that particular field, so that we can advise our student properly. We don't cheat, we don't lie. You see, that's very important, because if we start cheating and we start lying, our student will do the same thing to us. That's why we always remember, as a Muslim, I think it's the hadith, that says, as far as we are concerned, we do not lie. The worst thing about life as a Muslim is those who lie. I remember the story, in the hadith, when one of, I think 3 of the Sahaba couldn't make it to go to, not Badr. After Badr is another war, But because of that, they don't lie. They tell the truth why they cannot make it. And I think after 50 days, they are not being entertained by the Prophet, But after that, the Prophet accept their repentance. Allah accept their repentance. But it's very important. So therefore, in conjunction with that, you have a strong publication record in the field of the research. Still active in the research field. No more that, I'm giving up, therefore no more, no. We are doing quite a few work on the EEG, ECG, so therefore, in this case here, I think there are a lot of potential in this one here. Our potential, our collaboration, with the Panawa Hospital has to be expanded and has to be strengthened in this particular case. So therefore, you must still be active in the particular research field. Remember that you are not expert in the topics that your PhD student, is doing. Because if you are the expert in the topics, then your PhD student got a problem. He or she cannot research it as your original PhD, because you are the expert, so very difficult, but not the topic, the field, yes, the field, but not the topic itself. So the project itself belongs to the PhD student. Supervisor can offer competent advice, especially in the early stage, which is very, very important, okay? Eventually, your expertise should outstrip your supervisor as it is your project. Eventually, okay, the student, the PhD student expertise on that particular project, on that particular topics, okay, should be much better than your supervisor. If not, you have not done a good job for your PhD work, the student. So therefore, in this case here, the student must eventually do that. And the student must be the lion after he finished the PhD. Because he's the expert and he can tell off the examiner. You don't try and tell me what to do because I know exactly what is going on because I am the expert. That's what your PhD student should do when during the Viva, because he knows exactly what is going on. The examiner may not know because the examiner may not be the expert and for sure is not the expert in that particular topic. Maybe the field, but not topic. Okay? Has sufficient time to provide. The supervisor must have sufficient time to provide adequate supervision. This is my advice to most of the supervisors. You have to find time. When you tell me that, oh, I'm sorry, Prof, I really don't have time. I have 12 hours of teaching that I have to do per semester, and I have this Panawa Hospital I have to take care of. I have this student, I have so many kids, then I would recommend don't supervise. If you want to supervise, you must provide the time, sufficient time, not just time, but sufficient time to supervise. And I've talked about sleep. I've talked about sleep during the Ibadah camp, how you can optimize sleep. So therefore, in this case here, take a look at how efficient you are and how you can make sleep as efficient as you want. Okay? Follow the guidelines of the, how Rasulullah and the Sahaba did it, I think there are a lot of guidelines that we can follow. Is genuinely interested in your PhD project. Genuinely, I use the word genuinely. So therefore, in this case here, we really want to have, or we want to become a supervisor who are really or genuinely interested in the particular project. Not because of the money, not because of anything, but because the student is good at publication, even though I'm not the expert, I want to actually supervise. Then you are not being fair to yourself and also to the student. I want to recommend that you really show interest. And when you show interest, you will find time. There will be time, doesn't matter. Okay. I remember when I was, supervising or advising quite a few of the PhD students here. I remember that every week we try to put time aside, for you to do your presentation, for me to listen, some of the lecturers to listen, so that we can give comment on your work. And that particular time become useful. And I hope that the group can start doing that again. Okay, this weekly meeting and so forth, the sharing session, once the pandemic is over, we can do a face-to-face, perhaps it would be good for you to start it again. maybe Zaliza, Mona, you are heading the research group, you may want to do something like that. Okay. And provide mentorship. You want to provide mentorship. Has a supportive personality. If you don't have, you must change that. You cannot, don't care. This don't care or tidak apa attitude should not exist. You must care. You must care about your student PhD. You must be supportive, as far as their PhD work. Unfortunately, track record of supervising PhD student through to completion is important. That is why, when I was the dean, I encourage that our new PhD graduate who are now the lecturer, to be to be in the committee supervision. Even though you are the lead, the principal supervisor, the main supervisor, but I still want you, to have the committee and not do it alone. Why? Why is it different from NTU? I find that most of our graduate here, especially locally, sorry to say that you don't have that enough independence, to actually supervise student alone. If I'm in NTU, we don't have any problem, Most of our, even the new staff and so forth, they can supervise alone. Most of them are from the MIT, we have some from UT Dallas and so forth, so they are all well-known universities that you don't expect them to finish their PhD work in 6 years or more, minimum 6 years. They are really grilled to that extent, where you really have this mentorship skill, supervising skill, develop. And during the time, they have already been encouraged to be mentored. Whether we can do it here or not, I think maybe we have to change that. Through the Sejahtera framework, we have to do that in order to improve, so that by the time our PhD student graduate from here, they can straight away supervise, no problem. But I don't see that in any of the local universities. I don't. I mean, sorry to say, but this is very unfortunate, So therefore, in this case here, yes. So the track record here becomes important. Okay. Nice to have supervisor with findings for your project, which is also his or her project. Why? Why is it very nice to have the supervisor with findings for your project? Actually, not finding, sorry, this is funding. Because in some cases, you find that having fund, having grant, like MOHI grant or external grant, whatever grant, that is supporting the student PhD work, becomes more interesting. So student, in this case here, Zainab, student will not run away because you are funding them, right? So that's what I mean why I asked you to wait. So if you have the funding, there's a likelihood. Two is that not just funding, but you make sure that student enjoying their PhD work. You cannot make it that PhD work is a chore. How do you do that? One of the things that we do is that we continuously have assessment with the student on a weekly basis. Just like last time in the group, when I do that, so what happened to all my students? You find that, hey, you really enjoy the work because when you present, you feel good about presenting what your finding is, isn't it? So therefore, in this case here, when you feel good, that feel good factor carry on to the next one. And when your other friends are not doing as good because they're under pressure, but when they start to pick up, they find that, hey, my friend can do it, sure I can do it. So nobody is finding excuse, but everybody is aiming at trying to benefit others during the sharing session. And this is a weekly sharing session, so everybody is now sharing. And can you imagine if I just have 10 PhD students and everybody is sharing, so our knowledge now is multiplied by 10. Every week, we have multiplied by tenfold knowledge. That is part of the Sejahtera framework. So therefore, in this case here, we multiply every week. We get better and better. Everybody gets better. And we share those kind of knowledge with our undergraduate students when we teach them. During class, you teach them, hey, you know, my PhD student has been doing this and this is some of the research. Don't you think that your undergraduate student will also be happy? Of course. I'm teaching digital system fundamental, you know. But in the class, I told them about how important is the brain and why we are doing brain research. You see, that gives them the knowledge. To help ensure that you stay on schedule and maintain constant progress of your research so that you ultimately finish your PhD within your intended time frame, typically 3 to 4 years. This is more towards the British system. So the British wants you to finish within 3 to 4 years. But if you find the American system is very different. American, they are talking about 5 years. Because within the first 2 years, normally you have to take courses. In the British system, you don't have to take courses. And you have comprehensive exam within the first 2-3 years. So you cannot finish your PhD in 3 to 4 years because you just finished your comprehensive exam in 3 years. Okay. So I think some universities, they do have comprehensive exam. I'm very sure. To advise and guide you based on their knowledge and expertise in the subject area. Okay, in the subject area. To help you in the decision-making process as you design, prepare, execute your research design. So don't you think that in this particular case, it becomes important and critical for your supervisor to have the knowledge, to be the expert in that particular field so that he can advise you whatever that you want to do, which basically may be contradict to the principle, to the foundation, you know, in that particular field. So therefore, it is important in this case here, you must have that supervisor. So unfortunately or fortunately, I think, especially for the new supervisor, you know, that you just graduate, it is important for you to work together in the supervisory committee and make use of that supervisory committee, you know. Make sure the chairman especially, you know, attend the weekly meeting or bi-weekly meeting, you know, that you normally have. Bi-monthly, sorry. To help as you analyze your raw data and begin to draw conclusion about key findings that are coming out of your research. Especially for some of you, now you see the raw data. Boy, you got a headache. You do not know what to do with the raw data. It doesn't matter whether it's a signal data, okay, or a text data. You know, everything is data and it is raw. Everything is in 1 and 0s. So now you want to analyze them. I think that's important in this particular case, especially during the initial part of the research. And the supervisor has to provide feedback and edits where necessary on your manuscript and elements of your thesis writing. I'm very sure all of you agree with this. And this one becomes very, very important and critical. We have to encourage and motivate you and provide ongoing support as a mentor. Students, you know, they will face a lot of pressure, especially in the case of the COVID. Now, if you as a supervisor cannot provide the encouragement and the motivation, you know, to support your student, then I think it's going to be quite tough. That is why it is important in the first part, you know, you must be able to genuinely want to be the supervisor and support the project. I think it becomes very important and critical. Because like in the case of the pandemic situation now, everybody is under pressure. Supervisor is under pressure, you know, student is under pressure. Everybody, Kulu, is under pressure. So to provide support at the human level, beyond just the academic challenges. Sometimes, you know, student may want to actually talk to you some personal issues, and you have to be a good listener. You have to be a good listener. Okay, I think there are situations where you have seen some examples, you know, and I'm very sure for some of you who has already supervised students, you believe, yes, this is exactly the situation that we must be prepared. Then we must be prepared. On conclusion, to sum up, The qualities you should look for in a good PhD supervisors are that they have a strong understanding of your research field. If not, look for a co-supervisor. If you still want the particular supervisor to be the main supervisor, look for a co-supervisor who are the expert. And make sure that your co-supervisor is always around during the weekly meeting. During the weekly meeting. Okay, so therefore, I think this is very important. Demonstrated by regular and impactful publications is inevitable. Whether this is your first year, second year, third year as a PhD student, you must publish. Why? Whether in conference or in journal, you must publish because, especially when I was in NTU, I remember we used to encourage students to publish in conference so that they can present in those conferences. You know why? Because during the presentation, yes, a lot of the other audience, if they don't agree, they will shoot you down. But not those conferences that, don't care so much, they are more interested in your publication rather than your work. I don't want to encourage you to go to some of those conferences. So those conferences, meaningless, it's not going to help you. But there are conferences that the audience, the participants, are lecturers who wants to make sure that whoever student doing the presentation, they want to be able to give feedback. And that becomes very important and critical. So you have to choose some of those conferences where your student can benefit from it, And this is my encouragement. Unfortunately, our grant system like Mohi grant and so forth do not encourage conferences without journal publication. But it's okay. We do have quite a few of the conferences that I know that you can still publish, on a journal, and still like Prof Imad have access, that is quite good, which is a very good conference, people attend and lecturers do provide feedback, participants do provide feedback. At the same time, you can publish on a journal. So I think that's very good. Have a proven track record of PhD supervision. Have the time to support you. Again, I repeat, there must be time to support the PhD student. And we'll do so by providing mentorship rather than being a boss. So Mazna, I don't think the supervisor should be the boss, but the supervisor should provide the mentorship. I think Mazna will agree to that. Because if you are bossy, it's not sufficient. Even if I tell Zaliza, I need a paper tomorrow, I'm not bossy to him, So I said, let's work together, and see how we can achieve that. So I think that is important. I think with that, I'm going to end this particular talk. Remember, it's your PhD. For the student, it's your PhD, and not the supervisor PhD. I think that is very important. And the supervisor plays a role as a supervisor, as a supportive role, as a mentor. But remember, it's not the supervisor's PhD. Your supervisor is there to help turn you into a lion. And therefore, in this case here, we as a lion supervisor, we are going to turn and help our PhD student to become the lion. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much, Prof. Thank you so much. Okay, I think this is a very nice topic that has been discussed and talked by Prof Wahab. So I open the floor to the discussion. We have another 10 minutes. I think enough for the question and answer session. So we have first question here from Dr. Muni. Prof, what are indicators for conference that really interested in our research work? What are indicators for conferences that really interested in our research work?
Now, I think the first and very important one is that normally these conferences, they focus on certain field. So therefore, make sure that it is the particular field, that you or your student, are going to present. And don't do something which is very, very different. For example, you are doing AI, but you're presenting in a conference on big data. then it's going to be tough, then they cannot give you enough feedback. Second is that you must try and attend the conference first. At least you know the kind of people that attend the conference and so forth, and provide. You as a lecturer, you as a supervisor must also be able to provide feedback to other students, and then you want to know who are the other supervisors that are attending the conferences. Okay. I realize like Exet is not too bad, so I think Prof Imad has done a good job. There are other conferences locally also that is not too bad. Even you have only like 6 to 7 people attending per session, but these 6 or 7 will normally provide feedback that is very useful to the student. I think that becomes very important. The other one, last time I used to attend this Prof Ismail from the Kuliah, from the Faculty of Engineering, UITM. He organized conferences that is also publishable in the journal, So I think those kind of conferences also not bad, because I used to attend them and we used to give feedback, and it's quite interesting. But quite a number of UITM punya lecturer in this case.
Okay.
Does that answer the question, Dr. Muni?
Is it yes, Dr. Muni?
Yes, Prof. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, Prof, we have another question from anonymous YouTube from YouTube. Okay. She asked about okay, we have different type of rabbit. For example, you have different type of students, which is rabbit lah. Okay. So how you on the that rabbit have a different strength and weakness. So how we can the supervisor can turn the rabbit from the according to their strength and weakness, how they deal with the rabbit and manage the different type of rabbit. How the lion would turn the rabbit from rabbit to lion, and how they manage, how they manage that type of different type of rabbit.
Okay, that is why it is important. It is important that we need to have this weekly session, with the student, And not only that, I don't mean like one-to-one, That's why it is nice to have a group, to have a group like our research group, So when you have that group, what happens is that when students present, the other student will also learn from this student, And then you can see from the presentation, the weakness of your student, And then you can personally tell him, okay, why not? I want you to read this particular book, Maybe it's not on a specific area or topic, but maybe it's on some fundamentals. Maybe the fundamental is very weak. So therefore, you ask your student, okay, hey, I want you to maybe AI. He is weak in AI, artificial intelligence, So he doesn't know what is fuzzy neural network, Okay, so you give him information. You have to play a role, in Googling, find out what will be the best book or what will be the best papers that you have and you think is suitable for your student, so that he can read up and pick up to speed. And this becomes important and critical as a mentor, you see. And if need be, you want to get some books. Of course, you do not expect your student to buy the books. So in the end, you have to buy the books. Or for our case, we can get from the library. There are actually money in the library that you can buy some books every year. Okay. So therefore, in this case here, you can use that money to buy books and request the library to buy that particular books, and you can actually book that book for the student. You see? And there are some journals that you can subscribe. Okay, you can subscribe. So therefore, having a grant is very important and critical. It is inevitable. In this particular case, that we need to have some grant. And I think our grant, for example, we can go to Prof Fauzan, Triple IT. He has some grant. He has some money as far as Islamization, And if we talk about Sejahtera framework or Islamization, I think there are a lot of things that we can do in conjunction with that, and Triple IT can provide that kind of funding. For the Mohi Fund, we can have a lot of money. Also, I'm not sure right now whether they allow you to buy or to subscribe to journals or buy papers, from those things. But there are also external funding right now, that you just have to try. For example, like Erasmus Fund, Okay. So therefore, those are the things that you can do. And by then, you should be able to recognize where the weaknesses and so forth. But most important, don't make the student PhD as a chore. If you do that, your student will run away. So Zainab, please remember, don't make the PhD student do their PhD as a chore. You should make it fun for them so that they want to know more. They want to get more, and getting a PhD is just another natural process. But getting the knowledge is what we want to do. And that is part of our Sejahtera framework that we are talking about, where students right now don't care about the PhD certificate, don't care about the PhD scroll, but I want to get that knowledge so that I can become the lion, in this particular case. I think that's what we want to do.
Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Okay, maybe we have the last one here. Okay, last question maybe, yeah. Okay, from Dr. Asmarani Ahmad Puzi. Okay, as a newbie in academics, how to sell our supervision service to get the students, as we do not have an experience in supervision yet. Perhaps the advice from you, Prof. Okay, before that, I want to add this question also, Prof. Since Dr. Asmarani question about how to sell supervision, I also want to ask, actually, we don't like for those who don't have grants, Prof. How can we motivate the student? We have the existing student, but how can we motivate them and even to get the new students without funding, Prof? Thank you, Prof.
Okay. There are a few situations here. One is that sometimes it's quite tough to get grant, but don't give up, because I think the FRGS, grant is not that difficult to get. Only thing is that you need to know how to get them. I think Azura is organizing a lot of workshop and so forth. Last time Prof Imad used to do that. And then the success rate with all those workshops is higher. Than if we do nothing. So I think most important is that now the grant call is already coming for the Mohi grant. So those workshops, like for example, I want to recommend that maybe our research unit group can organize some of these workshops with your mentor. You have a mentor, right? And then after that, come up with a few topics, that you want to propose to get the grant. Work together in a team, so that the team there will come up with. And these are the team that will create the supervisory committee. I think we do that. And that becomes better, that becomes stronger. And get a team that you can work together. Do not form a team that just because he is expert in that area, but you cannot work with that individual. For whatever reason, I just don't like his mentality, his attitude. So don't, why you want to create a problem for yourself? You don't like him or her, don't. Find somebody else. There is going to be more that you can work with, So in life, the most important thing is that, as what our encouragement in Muslim is that we want to work together with the team. Okay, so I think it's important. Although the university is now not encouraging you to work in a supervisory committee, but I still feel that it is important that we have the supervisory committee and continue with that, because there are a lot more advantages rather than disadvantages, especially in our case. So I think even though you don't have grant, go and look for grant. If you don't have, most important is that some or majority of our students, about 30%, come here without grant. They come with their father's grant. Now, it is important that because they are using their father's grant, that we want to make sure that they finish their PhD on time. And how do you do that? First is that you have to create interest. They have to be interested what they are doing and not forcing themselves because my father says he wants me to work on it. Finish. I've seen PhD student, and then during the viva, says, no, because my supervisor says so. Straight away, I feel that guy. Because you cannot. This is your PhD. You have to have the interest. You really want to do it. And there must be a bigger picture. Remember, I always tell you all, There must be a bigger picture. What is your bigger picture that you have in mind? Don't look at only the small picture. With the bigger picture, you can do better because you know in the end, this is what I want to achieve. So that is why it is important that you must have the bigger picture, and from that bigger picture, you can actually go through, whatever difficulties that you have or you face. So the PhD student, once they find that it is fun, I really want to present because I want to show off. I want to show off what my finding is because I know that a lot of you do not know about this one. Why? Because that is the area of expertise that he or she, the student, will be developing. And he or she will become the lion in that particular context because he's going to be the expert. And nobody can tell him off. But he can tell everybody off because this is not your area, this is my area, I know better. See? So I think that is what we want to achieve. Once we can achieve that, then our student will enjoy doing the work. Then they want to do more. They want to do more. And they want to publish because they know that I want to share. I want to share my knowledge, my finding with the rest of the world. Because sharing as a Muslim is important. We want to share. And that is part of our Sejahtera framework. We want to share what we know with the rest of the world. Okay, I think that's important. Okay, Zaliza?
Okay, is that okay, Dr. Asmarani? Prof has answered your question, right? I hope so. Okay, I think that's all for the today, Prof, and all for the session for the Supervision Skill Enhancement series, Lion Supervision. We got a lot of information, we got a lot of tips and tricks to be supervisor, to be the supervisee, and also the student itself. Okay, so I hope that we as a supervisor can manage the student as well as Prof did before. Okay, so we just being a lion, produce a rabbit, from rabbit to lion, from lion supervisor to the lion student. Okay, so I hope by that we can end our session with tasbih kafarah Isra. Thank you so much, Prof. Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you all. Please be safe and stay healthy.
Thank you, Prof.
Assalamualaikum.
Terima kasih banyak, Prof.
Thank you, Prof.
Terima kasih, Dr. Zaliza.
Sama. Thank you juga Dr. Munif for organizing.
Asma ada, Asma. Thank you, Asma. Asyik tak Dr. Siti Asma.
Oh, Dr. Siti Asma. Oh, ya, Dr. Siti Asma.
And also the team. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Assalamualaikum.
Salam.